float on my back for a while and swim to the side, because I'm not bankrupt at the moment. 21 days it's been stayed, and I'll just go and set the primary order, the purported order aside at the Supreme Court.
So you're still a senator?
Absolutely. Everything's been stayed for 21 days. So like I said, I'll float and get my breath back, and I will swim to the side of the rip. I'm not going to panic. I've been in these positions before and come out of it. I mean, I'm not panicking about it, but I mean, this is where was that fair? I had 1 hour as a self-litigant to put my case, and I had police coming in and out of the courts with 2 criminals in there, and he says the court wasn't interrupted. I don't know about that.
5 police here today, armed federal police.
Well, that's right, because one lady was killed and stabbed to death in a court. I'm very fortunate I can be talking to you here today.
Are you saying you're not a bankrupt right now?
No, it's been stayed for 21 days. I'll consider my position. We've still got legal avenues, so we can appeal but no, I can still stand as a senator, and I'll fight it to the end. This is my livelihood, not only for me but for my children.
Why don't you just repay the debt?
There is no debt. Thank you.
You accused the judge of basically taking your livelihood off you, taking all your estate off you. I mean, you had some pretty strong things to say up there.
Well, wouldn't you? Work too hard for some single judge just to turn around and say, he's just going to strip all my assets. Who's he to do that?
What do you make of the court process that you've just been?
Well, what do you make of it? I mean, I'll let the Australian people decide that. It's not a fair go.
So your wife wanted to speak. Do you know what she wanted to say?
I don't know. But anyway, sorry?
You said you were going to refer it to the Senate. What steps are you thinking of there?
Oh, come on. Have a look at, the Judge Barker, who's the senior judge here in the Federal Court of Australia. So this is right up the government's alley. He always had a steel rod to throw through me, pin me. So, I'll, of course it'll have to be. I've already put the Attorney General on notice. I've already put the Chief Justice to the Federal Court on notice. You can't have 2 purported criminals in your court case at the bar sitting next to Lester's lawyers. A serious breach and duty of care.
It's 21 days enough time to prepare an appeal.
I've already got the appeals prepared. I'm already prepared.
You regret contesting the election?
Do I what?
You regret contesting the election?
What do you mean contesting the election?
You regret nominating yourself as a candidate after everything you've gone through?
Well, this was always going to go. It's just that you blokes got involved in, to be honest. You don't make it any easier, and sometimes, best way to describe you, like an old sheepdog gets around my feet. I need to get on with the job.
You have a bit of a crack at us, saying, because it was referred to as a circus and you were as a clown.
Well, do you think I'm a clown? I mean, that was a very serious matter on Monday. You tell me where someone, on a very important point, a sequestration order, cannot be given proper procedural fairness, and that's why I had to say to His Honour, there is procedural fairness here, and I put it on as one of the points. And, the service had all holes right through it, and, the court has to be 100% satisfied before it can bring down an order. And look at this. This is his hand-down decision, and, he spent a lot of time. I knew when he reserved his decision, he was going away to write it, so he'd sharpen the knives, and he was pretty quick to use them. He was quicker than my local butcher. Thank you.
That is the former One Nation Senator Rod Culleton, who has just been declared bankrupt by the federal court outside of Perth there. Mr Culleton said that he is not bankrupt at the moment and that he is still a senator. He also said that everything has been stayed for 21 days, and in that time, in his words, he said, I'll float on my back and I'll I'll swim to the side of the rip. He says he's not panicking. He's going to consider his options and his legal avenues, but he's determined to fight it to the end, as it is his livelihood for himself and his children. Well, for more on this, let's cross now to Canberra, where we're joined by our political reporter, Ashlyn McGee. Now, Ashlyn, you probably heard all of that then. The Senator Culleton, he said he's going to fight this in the end. He still is a senator, but what legally is his position?
Look, it's really complicated is the first thing I have to say, and largely because this is totally unprecedented. So in the last couple of days, I've spoken to quite a few constitutional lawyers, but the advice all seems to be the same, and that seems to be from the moment this decision was handed down that Senator Culleton is in fact bankrupt, and that happened 20 minutes ago. he is disqualified from standing or from sitting as a senator in the Australian Senate. Now, the 21-day stay that he was talking about, my understanding is that that refers to the seizure of some of his property, not the fact that he's actually bankrupt. He is, of course, like all Australians who are going through the court system, entitled to appeal against any decision, and he's subject to the normal procedures with that. But my understanding from all the constitutional lawyers that I have spoken to is that as of that declaration of bankruptcy, he is disqualified from standing as a senator.
So, Ashlyn, how quickly will things move now?
Well, it's a bad time of year for something like this to happen. My understanding is that if this were a normal process, if this were the only court case that Rod Culleton is facing, then what would happen is the court would notify the presiding officers in the Senate, and they would move to notify the Governor of WA that there was a vacancy and One Nation would be able to fill it. Now, the complications are twofold. The first one is that it's Christmas and the presiding officers of the Senate are out of the office. The second is that there's another court case hanging over Rod Culleton. Now, that's a High Court challenge that is seeking to determine whether he was validly elected in the first place. Now, given that concerns something well before this, whether he was validly elected, that actually takes precedence. So what is likely to happen is that the Senate presiding officers will wait to see what the High Court decides before making any decision on that. And then at that stage, they'll look for the correct way to fill his vacancy in the Senate.
So if he is to be replaced, Ashlyn, how will his replacement be chosen?
Well, it depends on what the High Court rules. So let's assume that the High Court rules he was never validly elected. If that's the case, it's likely to be a recount of the Senate vote in Western Australia, in which case our election analyst Anthony Green says it's likely to go to the second person on the One Nation ticket, and that was Rod Culleton's brother-in-law. So that's if the High Court does decide he was never validly elected in the first place. And that is what the Senate will be waiting to hear before they make any decisions. But even if the Senate were to sit tomorrow, which clearly they won't, they're not sitting till next year, Rod Culleton at this point in time is not entitled to join them.
Political reporter Ashlyn McGee joining us live from Canberra. Thank you.